So now let's switch things up and talk about 4 ways that IFS supports the psychedelic work. So first, IFS provides a good map of the psyche. This is a quote from Michael Mithofer, who's the main force behind the MDMA research that's been going on for over 20 years. I ran into him a while ago at an IFS conference, and he was really excited that people's MDMA experiences were a confirmation of the model, because they didn't know anything about IFS often, and yet in that state they would spontaneously begin talking about parts. So if this is a model for how the psyche is organized, that psychedelics open up and we understand that model, we can become a better facilitator. So number 2, consent. Let's say someone comes to you, or maybe this is you, and a part of you is really excited to do psychedelics, and if that part is ascendant in the system, that might be all you're aware of, or if someone's coming to you, that might be all they're presenting to you. But you might be curious whether this part is polarized with another part that doesn't want to do it, that finds the whole thing too scary. From the IFS perspective, a good decision is one made in consultation with all the parts and with consent from all the parts. So in our group CAP project, we stop at pretty much every stage and ask people to check with their parts and make sure they're all on board to go ahead with the experience. And if something happens without consent from a part, that part is liable to have a blowback reaction or even sabotage the experience. Number 3, witnessing. You may have seen the next video before, but it makes our point really well.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
Yeah, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just... Sometimes it's like there's this achy... I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. If you would just...
Don't...
So, who was right? Think about it. Obviously, they're both right? Because he's right. If she got the nail out of her head, all that stuff wouldn't be happening. But she's right, because once he was able to witness, their relationship got much better, and she got something that she needed. For those of you who have or have had kids, what do you do if your child falls down and is crying? Basically, you need to witness. You're going to say, wow, I see you have a boo-boo, and that's scary. So our parts are like that, parts that are in trauma. And when they come out in a psychedelic session, that's a big part of what they need, just for us to be present and witness them. And in order for that to happen, we have to get, it's not me who's in terror in this moment, it's a part of me, and I can be that self-presence that provides the witnessing. So in teaching about this, I found these slides on Facebook. This is basically people making fun of their kids, but I think it's a good chance, it's good practice at not getting logical and just providing a validation of how something feels, right? So rather than explain to this little girl if she took off her puppets or oven mitts or whatever, she wouldn't drop her fork, we can just validate that it's upsetting that she is dropping her fork. Same with all these. We don't have to be logical, we don't have to fix it. We just be a witness for what's difficult, upsetting, painful, scary. When we don't do that, when we try to fix the experience of a part that's actually stuck somewhere in the past, it can feel really bad to them. And I think these cartoons give a good sense of what that's like for them. And finally, we are not anti-depression. What is depression from an IFS perspective? Really a collection of parts, right? And these attitudes might represent some of those parts. And imagine you can think of more examples. And calling this depression seems to me a little disrespectful to the individual parts that are having their own experience, and we're not really recognizing them for what they're going through. Similarly, with anxiety, collection of different parts. Seems to me that some of the parts are exiles. They're the ones that are just holding terror, perhaps. And then others are protectors. They're the ones that are worrying and tensing and bracing. And again, I'm sure that you have more examples than this. So in traditional ketamine treatment, you might have a scenario where someone has parts that we call depression and also other parts that don't like that. So they would be polarized, and the parts that want to get rid of the depression bring the person to a doctor, and they say, those depression parts are pesky, help me get rid of them. And the doctor is going to say, sure, here's some ketamine, pesticide, we can get rid of them. And that happens, and then the person might say, wow, they went away, are they going to come back? And the doctor might say, well, let's do 5 more applications, and that should eradicate them. That's a pretty typical course of treatment. And then 6 months later, if the depression parts are coming back, the parts that don't like that will bring the person back to the doctor for a booster, and the idea is to keep those parts away. Similarly, with anxious parts, you might name the problem as I'm anxious, which is really saying that my anxious parts are blending, and the parts that don't like that will want to get rid of them. And that's not really the solution, because we're not going to get rid of them, and we don't want to. We need parts to keep us safe by worrying about what could go wrong, but we just don't want them blending. So if we can welcome them, befriend them, maintain self-leadership, and listen to them. If they're exiles, to provide witnessing. If they're protectors, to work with them to keep us safe and listen to what they have to say. That is a much better treatment for anxiety. The IFS motto is all parts are welcome. That goes for parts that bring depression and anxiety. Another meme perhaps, but this poem from Rumi is such a beautiful representation of the IFS motto. I'll leave it on the screen to finish this presentation.